Whether you won your Dynasty League, lost your Dynasty League, or finished somewhere in the middle, that doesn't matter anymore. It is on to 2026, and it's time to get your team ready to make a championship run. I'm going to break down the 5 players that I think are the absolute best buy lows in Dynasty fantasy football right now. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you some moves I would make to go get these guys. Let's start with a running back. Now, I typically don't like trading for running backs before free agency, before the NFL draft, because so much can change. But I'm going to make an exception with Breece Hall here. Entering free agency for Breece Hall, you got to think he is not going to be back with the Jets. Remember, he wanted and was hoping he would get traded at the trade deadline. It didn't happen. This team is in a full-on rebuild mode. I doubt they're going to sink money into a running back like Breece Hall. That means we could see Breece Hall moving on to somewhere great like the Kansas City Chiefs, maybe the Houston Texans. I think another good sneaky spot that would be great for Breece Hall, the Washington Commanders. Dan Quinn talking about they want to run a more ball control offense. They didn't really have, running backs that they could count on last year with a healthy Jaden Daniels. Any of those spots, almost any spot would be better than the Jets, let's be real. And we got to think Breece Hall is moving on. And despite the fact that he was stuck on the Jets, Breece Hall is still a good player. Last year, among qualified running backs, he ranked 3rd in explosive run percentage, 10th in success rate, and 5th in missed tackles force per attempt. And over the previous 2 years prior to last year, he had 76 and 57 receptions. So we know pass catching is not an issue for Breece Hall. And he's still barely 24 and a half years old right now and only being ranked as the running back 14 in Dynasty. Now, as I said, I'm usually pretty risk averse to going out and trading for running backs right now because free agency, the NFL draft can absolutely alter a running back's value. But I think Breece Hall could be this year's version of Javonte Williams, only a better version of Javonte Williams. Remember Javonte Williams, free agency last year, signed with the Cowboys, and it's like, well, he hasn't really been that good anyways. And then Javonte Williams was, I don't want to call him a league winner, but pretty close to a league winner this year. Think that can be Breece Hall if he goes to the right spot, signs with the right team, and of course they don't do something crazy in free agency or in the NFL draft. So I'm willing to go out and take that risk right now because if I am going to trade for a running back right now, I want it to be a running back who could potentially give me league-winning upside. And if Breece Hall goes to, say, the Kansas City Chiefs or something, and they don't bring in any other competition for him, he could absolutely be a league winner. So I would be more than willing to give up a late first, early second for Breece Hall, or even aging running backs like Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley. These guys are ranked higher, valued higher than Breece Hall in Dynasty right now. If I could trade one of those guys for Breece Hall and get something in return like an early second, a late first, maybe a young wide receiver with upside like one of the guys I'm going to talk about, I would absolutely do that. I think this is the time to go get Breece Hall before he signs somewhere great in free agency, and then whoever has Breece Hall is not letting him go. And yeah, it's 2026, and I'm going to get sucked back into Ricky Pearsall. I just don't care here. Like when there's good players who have been, held back because of injury and are being undervalued in fantasy, I'm going to continue to take shots on them because eventually it's going to pay off, and maybe this is the year it pays off. But we're talking about Dynasty here. You have time. This guy is entering his prime right now, 25 years old this year. Wide receiver prime tends to be 25 to 28 to 29 years old, depending on the wide receiver. So you're looking at multiple prime years still of this guy. But he's being ranked in Dynasty as the wide receiver 32. Now, like I said, injuries have derailed him, and they did derail him again in 2025. But you look at it in the 5 games where he played at least 80% of the snaps, he was the wide receiver 22 in terms of fantasy points. He also was 17th in air yard share and 15th in targets over those games. And then you look at wide receivers with at least 100 routes run last year. He was 3rd in route win rate, 9th in separation score, and 26th in yards per route run. This is a young, talented wide receiver in a great situation here. We know Brandon Ayuk is not coming back. It's probably going to be Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall as the top 2 wide receivers, Brock Purdy at quarterback, this Kyle Shanahan offense. You got to feel good about guys here. He just needs to put it together for a full year. Really just needs to stay healthy for a full year for this guy to pay off. And I would be more than happy to trade any second round pick for Ricky Pearsall. Think back in rookie drafts, there's no guarantee your second round rookie pick is going to pay off. Also, what about wide receivers like DK Metcalf or DJ Moore, who are both being valued higher than Ricky Pearsall, but are 3+ years older than this guy and haven't even really been productive for fantasy outside of like 1 or 2 years in their entire career? Just give me the upside of Ricky Pearsall, the youth of Ricky Pearsall. All it is going to take is for this guy to stay healthy for a full 17 games and have everything click in this 49ers offense, and his value is going to absolutely skyrocket in Dynasty leagues. So go get him now before that happens. And go subscribe to the channel before we skyrocket and take off and get huge in the Dynasty space. Look, we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, a little meager 1,000 subscribers by the end of January. Help us out. If you're enjoying any of the content we're putting out and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, take one moment, subscribe to the channel. We'd greatly appreciate it. Now, another young wide receiver who's been plagued by injury, Christian Watson of the Green Bay Packers. But this year, he was healthy, or at least he was healthy when he came back from the injury that he had that before. You get it. You get it with Christian Watson. This guy's been hurt a lot. But look at it. From week 8, when he came back from that injury, to week 17, he was the wide receiver 13 in fantasy. This is despite the fact that he barely ran half the routes in that week 8 game, and he ran less than half the routes in that game against Denver when, yep, he left with an injury, although it didn't cost him any missed time here. This is a guy who has been oozing with upside, just needs to stay on the field. Why can't it be 2026? Why can't 2026 be the year he stays healthy? Like, look, CMC is a prime example of this, right? Like, a guy that everybody's like, no, I'm too scared to draft CMC. I'm too scared to trade for CMC. He's always hurt. He's injury prone. And then he went out there, he stayed healthy, and he won you a fantasy championship. Now, I'm not saying Christian Watson has Christian McCaffrey type upside. I mean, they share the same name, but that's about it. But he does at least have weekly wide receiver 1 upside when he's healthy, when he's on the field. And it's not like he, got lucky through other wide receiver injuries. I mean, he was playing with Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Matthew Golden, and he still was the guy here in Green Bay. I think he's a great pivot if you're on a team that maybe you just won the championship, or maybe you feel like you're a year or two away and you want to get away from guys like Devontae Adams, Michael Pittman, Terry McLaurin, wide receivers that are either well over 30, in their 30s, or getting close to 30 years old, and you want to get a little bit younger, get some more upside. He's still only 26 years old, which means you're looking at 2, 3, maybe more prime, very good years here from Christian Watson. So yeah, if I could trade one of those older wide receivers to get a bit younger, I would absolutely do it. I think Christian Watson, a great buy low in fantasy, another guy where he has shown when he's healthy on the field can be an absolute stud. And you never know when there's going to be that year where he never, ever gets hurt and you're happy you have him. And then I'm going to go against my running back rule twice and say, go get a guy like Cam Skattebo. So I already said there's one time when I would go out and potentially buy low on a running back, and that's when it's a guy like a Breece Hall who could potentially, after free agency, after the NFL draft, just see his value shoot through the roof and have potential league-winning upside. But I think the other time to buy low on a running back right now is a guy who has seen his value absolutely plummet due to injury, but is still young and still in a good situation, and that is Cam Skattebo. This guy is not even 24 years old yet. Yes, he's coming off that serious injury. We all saw the injury. We all saw it. We know how bad it was. But look, we have a couple players we can compare to here. That's Aiden Hutchinson and Alex Smith. Now, the Alex Smith situation is not the same because, remember, he got an infection during surgery, almost had to have his leg amputated, had huge setbacks, took him a ton of time to recover, was never really the same. But Aiden Hutchinson, 2024 in week 6, had a very similar injury, similar surgery, everything went fine, and he was back ready to go week 1 of 2025 and was more than fine this year. Sounds like all reports are Cam Skattebo had surgery in October, everything went fine, sounds like he's well on the way to recovering, he's going to be ready for training camp, going to be ready for week 1. And when people realize this and see him out there, he's going to go up in value because this guy was great when he was on the field last year. From weeks 2 to week 7 before he had that injury in week 8, this guy was a top 22 running back every week of the season. Also was a top 5 running back twice. Had 2 or more catches in every single game, one of those games, and had 90 or more total yards in all but one of those games. He's a stud. I talked this guy up all off season as like one of my favorite running back prospects. No, he doesn't pop off the page with that explosive speed, the crazy moves, but what he does do is great for the NFL. He breaks tackles. He always goes forward, rarely goes down on first contact, is a great pass blocker, and is a great receiving back. So Cam Skattebo to me is, again, one of the rare running backs I will try to go buy low on right now. We're talking about a young running back, potentially the workhorse running back in this Giants offense that's going to have a whole new coaching staff, hopefully a good coaching staff going into 2026. So this is a great time to go buy low. Again, I think if I could trade any second-round pick for Cam Skattebo, I would absolutely do it. Maybe even a late first, like if I won my Dynasty championship, and maybe I'm like, hey, you know what? I don't need my 12th pick in the first round, or maybe I finished runner-up and I got the 11th pick. Sure, I'll take a chance on Cam Skattebo. Then last year at this time, Drake May was coming off a good but not great rookie season, was a good buy low in Dynasty for, savvy players that were willing to take a chance on him. And obviously, if you did that, you're doing backflips right now. Well, I think this year, that version is Cam Ward. You look at it as a rookie, Drake May had 2,700 total yards, 17 touchdowns. Cam Ward this year, 3,300 total yards and 17 touchdowns. Now, in fairness, Drake May did not become the starter until week 3, but also in fairness, Cam Ward's situation this year was way, way worse than Drake May's situation as a rookie. Now, I'm not saying Cam Ward is going to be in the MVP discussion next year in year 2, but kind of more like a Caleb Williams, right? The right coach comes into this Titans situation here. We could see him make a Caleb Williams type leap where he goes from looking like a bust, really, and then becomes a very serviceable, high-end QB2, low-end QB1 type. And look, he showed the kind of progress we want to see as the season went on. Sure, in the beginning of the season, it was horrible, but down the stretch from weeks 12 to week 17, he had 10 touchdowns and only 1 interception. He showed growth. He showed, improvement there. Again, if the Titans can bring in a offensive coach who can help develop Cam Ward, we could absolutely see this guy make a massive leap in year 2. Again, maybe not a Drake May level leap, maybe more like a Caleb Williams, but better type of leap. But either way, I think it's well worth the risk to go trade for this guy in Superflex, of course. I wouldn't go trade in a single QB league. Nah, you shouldn't need Cam Ward necessarily. If you got him, great. But if you don't, I don't think he's a guy you have to go get. But in your Superflex leagues, and most Dynasty leagues these days are Superflex, go out, put out the feelers for Cam Ward. Again, I would be willing to trade a mid to late first in Superflex. I mean, think about it. Is there a QB in this year's rookie class that you're going to feel better about than Cam Ward next year? I have my doubts. Not only that, you could potentially trade older QBs like Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, guys that are now into their 30s that people might value, that are being valued higher than Cam Ward, honestly. And your league mates might value them higher. Say, hey, I don't want to risk it with Cam Ward. Just give me the safety of Jared Goff or Baker Mayfield, and you can have Cam Ward. And you potentially could have a high-end QB2, low-end QB1 next year who's still very young and could get better and better as time goes on. All right, there you go. Those are my 5 best buy lows in Dynasty right now. But we have all sorts of Dynasty content to help you dominate your startup, your rookie drafts, everything you need to dominate in 2026. You can find all our videos in our playlist right here.